Hello again, beloved Greek students. Today we're going to begin our introduction to the Greek noun. It's kind of like the introduction to our introduction. If you are with the Greek class at San Diego Christian College, this is Ray Summers' textbook, Chapter 4, Nouns, Second Declension, beginning on page 15. If you're not in that class, this is a very general introduction to Greek nouns. But there is so much packed into Chapter 4 of Ray Summers that I will be doing a series of videos addressing different things in it. So for now, I just want to begin a very, very, very basic introduction to help you understand what's going on. Because if English is the only language you've learned, which is often the case with students that I have, the Greek noun can be very, very challenging because we have a whole different ball of wax. The reason is Greek is a language with noun declensions, and English isn't. Now, a noun declension means that words can have different endings. You saw that with verbs earlier, but at least there's there can be some parallel in English to different verb forms, but there's not really a parallel in different noun forms. For instance, English with the tenses, we have I run, I ran, or I will run for present, past, and future. We don't have anything like that with nouns in English. So, for example, if we use the word dog, the word dog can have any number of different functions in an English sentence. This can be very confusing to people who come from different language backgrounds, but in English we know everything we know from word order. And in Greek, word order does not work the same way as in English. It would not be true to say that word order has no significance in New Testament Greek. That would not be accurate to say at all. However, the significance is quite different. In English, we know the function of a noun by where it comes in the sentence, and it just doesn't work that way in Greek. As we get into more examples as we go through this chapter, what I'm saying is going to make more and more sense. But, okay, so a little bit of background information, just to kind of prepare the soil for things we are going to talk about. First of all, we are going to be learning a noun system that assumes that there are 8 different noun cases. Now, I want to give a clarifying point. There are not actually 8 different noun cases. There are actually 5. Older Greek interpreters thought that there were 8 cases because there are 8 cases in Latin. However, Greek cases are determined by form, and there are really 5 true forms, and so there are really only 5 cases. We call them nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. However, having said that, for our present purposes, at the beginning of the semester, it is very helpful to think of noun cases as though there were 8 cases, because there are 8 primary functions of a Greek noun. In other words, the forms, what it looks like, there's 5 ways a Greek noun can look, but there are 8 basic things it does. That word basic is very, very important, because if you go on with me to second year Greek, you're going to find out that there are a lot more than 8 things that Greek nouns can do. So if we're going to identify Greek nouns in terms of their function, we would have like a bazillion categories. Not really, but we would have a lot. However, it is going to be very helpful as you're beginning to tinker around with Greek nouns and Greek sentences to think in terms of 8 cases, which is why our textbook is going to talk as though there were 8 cases. So we're kind of gonna pretend we've got 8 cases to work with for a while in my Greek class. if you are watching this video and you're in Greek classes that use other textbooks, like for instance, Mounts perhaps, or Winham, or maybe a few people are still using Machen. There's any number of great Greek primers, but they may actually be working from a 5-case system, but it shouldn't be too hard to put all of this together. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's on the board. Let me identify these charts. Up here, the S means singular. Up here, the PL means plural. These are noun endings. N stands for nominative. G stands for genitive. DLI stands for dative, locative, and instrumental. D for dative, L for locative, I for instrumental, because those 3 different case functions share this form. A stands for accusative, and V stands for vocative. And I just realized I forgot something very, very important. There should be an A here for oblative. Genitive and oblative. Those are 2 different case functions that share a form. And because we did that, and I apologize for this, we're going to put AC here. Notice these periods are important because AC stands for accusative. Again, my apologies, but I'm not going to start the video over because I just don't want to have to say all of that again. So, again, just so we're clear, nominative, genitive, and oblative, because these 2 case functions share the same form that we usually call genitive. DLI stands for dative, locative, and instrumental. I will define what all of these things mean in another video. Accusative and accusative, the form is omicron nu. And then finally, vocative. Again, don't get carried away wondering what all of those things mean. If you don't already know, hold your horses for another video. Over here we have the singular endings, os, u, o, on, eh. Over here we have the plural, oi, on, ois, us, and oi. Notice that these 2 share a form. But the reason we have 5 different set cases is because in the masculine singular, the vocative has a unique form, which is an epsilon ending. Whereas outside of the masculine singular, nominative and vocative will share a form. Okay, again, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but vocative gets considered its own case because, write a little line here, because in one instance, vocative has its own form. I don't have this written up here, but this side is masculine, this side is neuter. You feminists in the crowd are going to say, well, you don't have feminine up there, but I have good news for you. We call this the second declension. And the second declension is mostly masculine and neuter nouns. Feminine is the first declension, which is another chapter. So ladies first, as it were. Although maybe ladies first doesn't fit with feminism anymore. I can't keep up, so we're not going to worry about that. If I'm offending you, remember you're here to learn Greek, not think a lot about my socio-political commentary. All right. I still go with ladies first. I hope I don't get stoned for it at some point. Anyway, feminine nouns are built on a different declension. That is the first declension. There are exceptions. There are occasional feminine nouns in second declension. There are occasional masculine nouns in first declension. And the textbook will talk about that. But for the most part, the second declension is masculine and neuter nouns, and the first declension is feminine. Okay, I don't know if you can see this very well, friends, but these are in purple, and then the black is the endings of the words. You're going to want to get used to these so that you can identify the function of a noun by its ending. So what you're going to want to do is you are going to want to somehow memorize these. it's going to make declining nouns a lot easier. Now, if it takes you some time to memorize, I want to suggest that on page 15, you might want to make some photocopies of some things. Let me show you something that in the textbook, something that's done a little different than I've put up here. You see, I put the dative, vocative, and instrumental together, the genitive and ablative together, but on page 15, on the chart on the bottom of the page, you can see how it puts the different forms, it lists them 8 times. This is the only time the textbook does it, but I think it's doing it to tell you that there are 8 different functions. You can see over on the side, it's showing you the functions. And you'll notice how I have defaced my textbook by circling the ones that are the same. But I did that so that I can see that. And I recommend that if you're comfortable writing on books, and you should be, you know, get over it, then you ought to circle those to get started. All right, so memorize these endings, and in some ways, I can't tell you exactly how memorizing them is going to work. You're going to have to work that out. I do have a little mnemonic device I use for the masculine singular, which is this series of sounds, os, u, o, on, e. I'm kind of a visual and an auditory learner, and sometimes I use auditory mnemonic devices. So I take these in order and think about what they sound like. Now, one of the things you will find is that, if you get to know a little bit about Professor Vic, is that I'm also into karate. I've studied some karate. I started in 1991. I've more or less stayed with it. I'm not going to say I'm good, but, you know, I sort of know karate. Okay. So, but I you know, karate kind of permeates my mind. It connects with everything, including New Testament Greek. So when I was trying to memorize the first declension, masculine singular, these sounds here, os, u, o, on, e, I kind of have a karate visualization. This is the goofiest thing in the world, but I have had a lot of students who still remember it. I've had a couple of students who they've gone on and they've got Master of Divinity degrees at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, or Gateway Seminary, or Westminster Seminary in Escondido. Gateway is in Ontario, a few others. And they've taken more Greek classes, and they've said that these karate, mnemonic devices continue to help them. So here is my mnemonic device. I'm going to pretend that I am in a karate match against an opponent. He's over there. You can't see him, but you can see me. Now, this is using the os, u, o, on, e. All right? You can do stuff like this your own, and you can use whatever you're into. Like I said, I'm into karate. So I visualize. Now, sometimes in karate, sometimes we make a noise. There's 2 ways you can describe this noise. Really, it's individual, but sometimes it's called a kia. We're not using that right now. Other times it's called an os. Sometimes we do a move like we punch or something like os, right? So imagine me against an opponent here, and I punch him, and I go os. Now, the opponent, when he takes the blow, this makes him very uncomfortable. It makes him so uncomfortable, he makes 2 noises. He goes, ooh, oh. And then he's so hurt that he falls on the ground. And then, I really want to finish this guy. I really don't like this opponent, so I leap on top of him like this. I jump on the opponent, and his last dying sound, he makes this noise. And then he's gone. That is your mnemonic device for os, u, o, on, and e. All right, so one more time on that. Goofy, I know, but we have a os, u, o. He falls on, and then he goes, and he's gone. Now, there's other things you can do. I have a few more of these I'll use later in the semester. I don't really have them for a lot of these. I have one for this, but it's related to the first declension, so I'm going to have to talk about that when we get to the first declension. But this is my method. Sometimes the goofier the better for remembering, all right? And I'm a goofy guy, so that really helps me out. But let me just recommend you want to learn these case-ending forms, and then so that you can learn to use them in context. So start memorizing. In another video, we'll talk about what these case endings do. In yet another video, we'll talk about the Greek article and give you an introduction to that. because that is also part of chapter 4, and it's pretty important, very, very important. I cannot tell you how important the Greek article is. And then even for this week, which is week 2 for you San Diego Christian students, pardon me, this is week 3. This is for week 3. I'm also going to give you an introduction for how to do your homework assignments. So for now, that's about it. I think that's about all you can take for the moment. Apply yourself to learning these case endings, and then you will, again, see how they function with nouns and what we're going to do with them.